Welcome to the Cuda Photography Podcast, a podcast about nature and wildlife photography in your own backyard and throughout the United States. Merry Christmas, everybody. Welcome to episode 28, the Christmas Buyer's Guide. You know, I absolutely love Christmas. Christmas time, I mean, everything about it. I mean, the birth of Christ, the Victorian era decorations, all the way up to the 1940s with Bing Crosby's White Christmas, up into the 70s and 80s with the Carpenter's Christmas album. I love sitting in front of a fire with a cup of coffee and listening to Christmas music and just relaxing in my comfortable chair. I love the gift giving. I love to receive gifts. I love to give gifts. I love the atmosphere, the warm fuzzies. I am just a Christmas nut. Okay? I don't know. Maybe it's my upbringing. Maybe it's because my mom is crazy about Christmas. I mean, she's way off the deep end. But it's just a fabulous time of the year. Everyone looks forward to it. We all hate the commercialization of Christmas, but we all look forward to what makes Christmas Christmas. And so in the spirit of Christmas, I put together this buyer's guide. It's going to be a buyer's guide from the perspective of a poor man, okay? This is for the budget-minded photographer. And again, that's what this podcast is about. It's about the guy that is doing everything he can to figure out how he's going to buy gear, how he's going to get out in the field, how he's going to afford to get to Yellowstone. You know, that's what this whole podcast series, one of the main themes of this whole podcast series is. So, but before we get into that, what's going on in my world? Well, I'm in the market for a new camera, as I said in the last episode. I'm not entirely sure what it's going to be at this point. It will be an emergency camera purchase. What I mean by an emergency camera purchase is this is a camera probably that I would not normally buy at this time, but because I need something to fill the role of my other 1 series camera, I will probably buy something like a 1D Mark III, something along that line. Okay, so that's coming. I've got a trip to Pocosin coming up probably in early January to photograph wintering waterfowl. Looking forward to that, mostly a scouting trip. And then beyond that, I'm really not sure at this point. I have to get my schedule out and start planning next year, really. It's a good time, guys, to get your calendar out, start figuring out what you're going to do, where you're going to go. Start putting those plans together. Okay, so let's get into the meat of this episode. I want this to just be about Christmas. I don't want to do anything else. So let's start with big ticket items. What can I buy someone or buy myself for Christmas that's a big ticket, that's not going to kill me? Well, I already mentioned one of them, okay? I'm going to start off with the Canon 1D Mark III. The Canon 1D Mark III. Why? Let me give you a little background on it. The Canon 1D Mark III was a professional level camera made between 2007 and 2009. Its primary purpose was to provide sports and wildlife photographers with a camera which provided superior performance in autofocus, frames per second bursts, and high quality sensors. Although the camera is only 10.2 megapixels, make no mistake, this camera is still made for high quality images. Think pixel quality and not quantity with this camera. The camera did suffer from an autofocus issue early on, but most of the cameras on the used market should be repaired as the fix was no cost to the photographer. Okay, let's talk about the specifications. It's 10 frames per second continuous shooting. That right there is a great thing. Why? Why is it so important to have 10 frames a second? What's everybody talking about here? Well, I'm glad you asked. 10 frames per second does two things for you. The first thing it does is it allows you to capture the images. Let's just say this. Let's say I've got a snow goose coming in from right to left. I'm tracking him. I get him where I want him. He's close enough. He's filling the frame. I hold down the shutter button, and I rip off 8 or 10 shots. Okay? What has just happened? Well, I've got almost a cinematic frame-by-frame capture of this bird. So one image might have the bird's wings straight up. One might have the wings flat. One might have the wings straight down. And one, he might have his head turned. And one, he might be looking at the camera. So it gives you so many shot opportunities in a quick burst. And that's one of the major reasons that these 1 series cameras have them. Okay? So, what else? What else does that burst do for you? Well, we talked about this 2 episodes ago, I think it was, with the Catalucci episode. When you photograph something in low light, let's say, and let's just say you're shooting with a 400 millimeter lens and you're getting, 1/160th of a second. Okay? When this happens, you have to understand that if you just click one shot, there's a good chance it's going to be blurry. Why is that? Well, as it turns out, what most people do when they fire their shutter is they push down hard on it. That first time when they first slap their finger down on that shutter button, it causes camera vibration. And so your first shot or two will often be out of focus, but that third, fourth shot in your series will be in focus. So that's why you'll see people, a lot of people wonder, well, why is this professional just holding down the hammer and hammering away at, 10 frames a second for a subject that's not doing anything? That's the reason. He's trying to get the sharpest shot possible. Okay, moving on from there. It has a dual Digic 3 processor. It has a 45-point autofocus system, more than enough autofocus points. It's got cross-type sensors in there. It only shoots from ISO 100 to 3200, but it's expandable to 6400. So that's something that you might want to consider. It depends on what kind of photography you're trying to do. If you're listening to this podcast, you're doing nature and wildlife. And so, the 100 to 3200 range is perfectly fine. If you were doing astrophotography, it might be a little on the low side of things. It has a 3-inch LCD monitor. That's typical. It has live view, but it cannot shoot video. Very important. You must understand this camera cannot shoot video. Okay, here's the best part. Here's the best part of what makes this camera so great, and it's the price. $499 used right now for a bargain price. $499. But Matt, it's only 10 megapixels. How can I shoot a 10 megapixel camera when everyone else is shooting 24 megapixels? You'll shoot 10 megapixels because that's what you can afford. And number 2, realize that you're probably getting better shots than they are, especially if you're doing birds in flight. And that's why I recommend this camera for those who are doing high action photography. If you're doing mostly bird portraits, backyard bird photography, this type of thing, maybe you don't need the 1D Mark III. Maybe a 7D2 would work for you. But I highly recommend the 1 series for birds. I highly recommend it. What else does this have going on? All right. You've heard me talk about this before with this camera, or with the 1 series cameras. What do they have that no one else has? These older 1D Marks, the Mark II, the Mark III, the Mark IV, they all have an APS-H sensor. Now, a lot of people scratch their heads when I say APS-H. APS-H was an experiment with Canon that lasted many generations. It was used in their high-end sports cameras, the 1 Series sports cameras. Think of it as in between a crop APS. It's in between a full-frame sensor and an APS-C sensor. It's literally right in the middle. It's a 30% crop, 1.3x. It turns your 300 millimeter, into a 400 millimeter. Okay, so that's awesome, right there. You got the crop factor, but you can also still shoot wide angle and do okay. You're still in the ballpark even with full frame wide angle lenses. And so I wish Canon had not done away with this. I know why they did, but I wish they didn't. The reason that they did it was a cost savings measure. At the time that the 1D3 was out, they also had the 1DS2. Now the 1DS2 was the full frame version. It was a 1 Series full frame camera. What eventually they did after the 1D Mark IV was created, they merged the two lines together and they formed the 1DX. The 1DX is like taking the 1D Mark III and merging it with the 1DS. Okay, that's what they did. Okay, so but again, guys, here's the thing. I'm gonna do a little spiel here. Okay, sorry, I've got to do it. So many people, and I used to recommend this to people too, but so many people buy a Canon Rebel when they're getting into photography, and we all do this. We make this mistake of buying consumer gear, okay? But when you're a wildlife photographer, there is so much demand on your equipment. It's not like photographing, a portrait session in your basement. It's there's so much more demand on your equipment. You've got water, you've got wind, you've got sand, you've got birds flying at 40, 50 miles an hour. You've got deer running and jumping, low light conditions. There's just so many situations where you need something better than a Rebel. And that's why I would rather see somebody buy something like this. As long as you're not going to shoot video, I would rather see somebody buy a used 1 Series camera than go buy a brand new Rebel. Now, some of you out there can't even afford this, and that's okay. I understand that completely. And if that's the case, you get what you can and you make do. But primarily I'm talking to people that maybe they can afford something around $500, maybe even $800, but they don't want to ever go over $1,000. I'm talking to that audience right now. And if that's you, you can't go wrong with these 1 Series cameras. Okay? I'm off my soapbox. Moving on. The next big ticket item is the Canon 1D Mark IV. Okay, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. It's very similar to the 1D Mark III. The biggest advantage that it has over the 1D Mark III are two big differences. One, you've got 16 megapixels, and two, you've got video. You got 1080p video with this. Yeah, I don't know what I was thinking, but anyway, you got 1080p video. Although it's shorter clips, you can do it. So if you absolutely have to have video in your camera, you could consider this. Now, the big drawback here is we're talking $1,200. Okay, and to me, that's a little steep for the age of this camera. I would rather see this camera somewhere around $700. I think would be more fair. Maybe $700 to $800 used. I think the used prices in general are a little bit higher than they really need to be. Even the 1D Mark III, I think, honestly, it should be about $400, $300, at most. But guys, by all means, man, get out there and do this. Now, this camera gives you a little more croppability. Okay, at 16.1 megapixels, I can crop down pretty good in the image and still retain a lot of detail. That's helpful when you're shooting birds in flight, or you're shooting hummingbirds and you want to get a little more room around them because they dart and dip and dive so much. But you don't have to. You can shoot full frame images and be okay. But again, let's go down through the specs on this one. 10 frames a second, dual Digic 4 image processors, has ISO from 100 to 12,800. It's expandable from 50 to 102,400. It's got a magnesium weather sealed body. It's got live view. Can shoot 1080p video. And it's got a 1.3x APS-H sensor. Again, a great camera. Any 1 series camera, with maybe the exception of the original 1D, is a fabulous buy. Please buy these cameras. They are awesome. So, one more rant on that. Well, if they're so awesome, why is no one talking about them? The answer to that's quite simple, actually. People spend far too much time listening to marketing nonsense and not enough time actually in the field with the cameras, understanding them. I'll never forget the day it hit me. I was at an air show, actually, and I was photographing the air show. I think I had a Rebel. I believe I had a T3i Rebel, and I had my 1D Mark II with me. And the jets went by. I photographed them. The prop-driven aircraft went by. I photographed them. About halfway through the show, I switched to my 1D Mark II, and I used that for the rest of the show. And I got home, and lo and behold, guess which pictures looked the best? The old 1D Mark II with its 8.2 megapixel sensor was by far the better image quality. And that's when it hit me. It was that day I realized that they were lying to us. That there was so much marketing hype as to not even be believed. That's all I got to say about that. I'm going to get off my high horse now. Get off my soapbox. Okay, let's move out of camera bodies. What about lenses? If you've listened to me in the past, I'm going to sound like a broken record. I'm going to go ahead and tell you what I think anyway. Without a doubt, the best bang for your buck right now, the best camera on the market, the best lens on the market right now for wildlife photographers, there are 2 of them actually. One of them I own, which is the Sigma 150 to 600 millimeter Contemporary. Under $1,000 right now, folks. Under $1,000. I believe they're about $950 new right now. Don't quote me on that. It's right around $950. You can get them used for about $800. Unbelievable lens. Great for bird photography, birds in flight, backyard bird photography, portraits at the zoo, portraits at the wildlife rehab center. Great image stabilization. I have used, as an example, I photographed a turkey vulture close up. No, excuse me, a black vulture close up, 600 millimeters, 1/125th of a second. It was tack sharp with the image stabilization turned on. Unbelievable results. Unbelievable. It is stunningly beautiful at between 300 millimeter and 500. It is acceptable between 500 and 600. The other lens that's equally as impressive, in my opinion, although I've never photographed with it, I know many people that have, and that is the Tamron 150 to 600 millimeter. Unbelievable lens. Again, great value, under $1,000. You can get them used for $700 on a good day. Just an amazing lens. Guys, we live in an era right now that has never been better for the wildlife photographer. We have more tools. We have cheaper lenses that perform very well. We have these zoom lenses that I can get better shots with these 150 to 600s than a lot of other people with their primes, because I have the ability to zoom, and that is so important for quickly changing for animals that are approaching you rapidly or animals that are wandering up to you. situations where you can't back up. I mean, I just can't say enough good things about them. Definitely something to put on your list. If you can afford to buy it for somebody else, they'll love you to death. If you can afford to buy it for yourself, you will love yourself for buying this. Trust me. Just trust me on this. Okay, the next item on the list. Well, what can I say? The Tamron, probably the most inexpensive yet stunningly beautiful lens, is the Tamron 70 to 300 millimeter f4 to 5.6 SPDI VC USD XLD. Wow. Can we just stop? Tamron, Sigma, Canon. Can we stop with the naming conventions? I mean, it's just crazy. I can't even remember half of it. Basically, I call this lens the 70 to 300 SP, because SP, people, that'll differentiate it from the consumer version. The SP lenses are Tamron's quote professional grade lenses. The great thing about this lens is right now it's going for $449 new. I can pick these up all day long on the used market for $250. You can't beat that with a stick. I have used this lens for hummingbird photography, for portraiture, for backyard bird photography, zoo photography, some macro work I've done with this, although I don't recommend it for macro. Amazing, versatile lens. Everyone should have one that's new. You know, I recommend that people pair this up with, if you're new and you're on a budget, buy this and buy the 1D Mark III or the 1D Mark II, and you will be a happy person. Trust me. Okay, moving on. How about a tripod? Everybody needs a tripod, right? This is you've heard me harp on this before. I'm not going to spend too much time on it. The tripod is, next to a camera and a lens, the next most important thing. You need a tripod that has a good load capacity. You need a tripod with a pretty good height. And you need one that, when you rest your camera on it, the camera does not shake. Okay? I recommend, for an inexpensive and quality tripod, I've always been a fan of Manfrotto. The Manfrotto, in this case, MK055 X Pro 3 BHQ2 aluminum tripod. You can pick them up for $288 up into the $300 to $400 range, depending on the head you buy for it and all that stuff. It supports 17.6 pounds. That's more than enough. So it would support a 1 series camera with a long lens and still have pounds left over. It has a 72-inch height on it. That does include, I believe that includes extending the center column. The only thing I will say about Manfrotto that I don't like is they have center columns and they're hard to remove. Like, you can pull them out, but it's hard to take them completely down to no center column. But other than that, I think it's a no-brainer. Definitely consider it. They also have used ones of these on the market. You can pick them up for $150. You know, there's just so many options out there. You don't have to buy new all the time. You don't have to be putting everything on a credit card and going crazy and driving your family nuts. But you know, go buy one of these things and try it. They're amazing. If you don't like it, send it back. You know, that's how I look at it. All right. Okay, this is a must-have item. This is an item, this next item. Everyone that's a photographer needs this. I don't care if you shoot landscapes, macro, weddings, portraiture, wildlife. You should have this in your bag. And that's the Canon EF 50mm 1.82 STM lens. Why? not buy this lens? It's $110 new. You can pick them up for like $50 on the used market. Everyone should have this lens. It is the sharpest lens for the money you can buy. And honestly, it's sharp enough to compete with just about any lens. Probably the only thing sharper is Canon's, the 1.4 50mm L. That's probably the only thing that's, or the only lens that's sharper in that category. Maybe the Art series from Sigma. Okay, but I mean, for the money and all that, you cannot beat this lens. I don't care if you're an advanced photographer or a newbie. It's so light and takes up so little space. It's like a no-brainer. You can throw it in your bag. You don't. It's like it's just having an extra insurance policy in there. You know, when you come across something interesting to photograph. Even if I'm going out to photograph large animals like elk or deer or something, I'll still throw this in there because I might see some interesting mushrooms or, you know, maybe a flower or something, and I can throw this with an extension tube on it in my bag, and you're good to go for macro. So totally recommend this. If you don't have one, definitely buy it. This would be a great gift to give somebody else. It's not going to break the bank. Okay, moving on. The next item, the Grizzly Camera Beanbag. This is a totally cool little thing that every wildlife photographer should have. Every wildlife photographer should have this. It simply is this. It's just a beanbag, literally. It's a beanbag shaped in kind of a V. You fill it up with beans or rice or some other, you know, material that gives it enough of a weight that you can set it over your car window / door. That's what it's for. It provides support for your lens, and you just rest your lens right on that, and you have a steady platform in your car to use. And I use this all the time. I use it in my backyard. I will drive my car to the end of my driveway and park it sideways, and I have a little backyard little studio set up there, and I'll throw that on my window. I'll throw some camo netting over my window, slip my lens through it, and set it on this beanbag, and I'm good to go. If you go to places like Cades Cove or Black Point Wildlife Drive in Florida, totally need this. I mean, I really feel like it's a need, honestly. This is a great gift, a perfect gift for somebody at Christmas. $32.95. You know, this is something a lot of people wouldn't buy for themselves, but would appreciate somebody buying it for them, especially if they're into nature or wildlife photography. Even a steady platform for doing some scenics out of your window, because there are opportunities that you have where you pretty much can't get out of your car or something like that. You could use it for that. It's just a awesome little accessory. Okay, moving on to the next item. Let's talk about stocking stuffers. I mean, what Christmas is not complete without stocking stuffers? Everybody loves to get little trinkets that are useful for Christmas. Okay, and these are perfect things that are affordable. You could buy yourself or preferably other people. The first thing I'm going to mention is sensor cleaning swabs. We all need sensor cleaning swabs, but none of us want to buy them. They're expensive. They're like $30 for like 5 or 6 of them. Nobody wants to buy them, but if you bought it for somebody else, they'd love you for it. You know, it's kind of a no-brainer. All you have to do, you have to know their sensor size on their camera body. So if they have a 1.3x sensor, you need to buy a certain size swab. If they have a 1.6, or if they have a full frame, you have to buy the swab for that sensor. And if you're afraid to clean your own sensors, then don't do it. But by all means, do think about it, because it really does become important. I'd say at least twice a year, if you're a pretty active photographer, you need to be cleaning your sensors. I mean, Canon's sensor cleaning system is really fabulous. It's probably the best one out there. And I don't have to clean mine very often, but I will clean it once or twice a year. And, again, a great gift. Okay, the next thing on the list. Now, here's something you can buy anybody, whether they're a photographer or a nature enthusiast or someone that just doesn't like being cold. Hand warmers. Hand warmers. They're little hand warmers that you actually, I don't know how they work exactly. They got some kind of chemical reaction in there, and you slip it inside your gloves or your boot, and they actually keep your feet warm or your hands warm. And when you're out in places like we are as wildlife photographers, we're out in the bush, we're out in the woods, it's cold, it's icy, it's in the morning. You slip these things in your hands, and all of a sudden, everything's great. You're not as cold anymore. Your fingers stay nimble, because you don't want your fingers getting cold. If your fingers get too cold, one, you got frostbite possibly, depending on where you are. If you're out in Montana or somewhere like that, frostbite is a serious possibility. If you're down here in North Carolina, you're probably not going to get frostbite, but you are going to get darn cold. So the hand warmers, excellent gift. For $8 on Amazon, you got a gift for somebody, just to show them you're thinking about them, you appreciate them. Come on, guys. Get out there and buy some stuff. My final item for this episode is an item that, again, is just something that we tend to not buy as often as we probably should, and that is CF cards or SD cards. I personally like the SanDisk Extreme 32 gigabyte card. For most of my cameras, it works fine. The 7D, it's great. I love it for the 7D. I love it for the 1 series. But for $33, you got a great fast card. You can do video on it. You can shoot at 10 frames a second with no problem. It's got great write speeds. Definitely consider the SanDisk cards. A great stocking stuffer. A little on the pricey side. I mean, you're getting up in there in $30-$40, but I think it's doable for most people. And your photographer, husband or wife or friend will love you for it. Or, hey, buy one for yourself, right? Give yourself a Christmas gift. Okay, welcome to the Know Your Subject segment. And today we're going to talk about the purple finch. According to Cornell's Lab of Ornithology, among the small forest birds like chickadees, kinglets, and nuthatches, purple finches are large and chunky. Their powerful conical beaks are larger than any sparrow's. The tail seems short and is clearly notched at the tip. Male purple finches are delicate pink-red on the head and breast, mixed with brown on the back and cloudy white on the belly. Female purple finches have no red. They are coarsely streaked below with strong facial markings, including a whitish eye stripe and a dark line down the side of the throat. Purple finches readily come to feeders for black oil sunflower seeds. You'll also see them in forests, where they can be noisy but hard to see as they forage high in the trees. In winter, they may descend to eat seeds from plants and stalks in weedy fields. Their flight is undulating. Purple finches breed mainly in coniferous forests or mixed deciduous and coniferous woods. During winter, you can find them in a wider variety of habitats, including shrublands, old fields, forest edges, and backyards. Okay, the purple finch. The purple finch is a very interesting bird. I think all finches are fairly interesting. I tend to like finches. And particularly interesting with finches is they're very ornery little buggers. A finch is very territorial. They're used to being in flocks, and so they're used to having to fight each other for their food. But you attract these birds much in the same way as you would any other seed-eating bird, which is with birdseed. And particularly, as was just said by Cornell, you use black oil sunflower seeds. They tend to really like these. They'll fly in just like any other finch. They'll feed. Finches tend to hang out. Okay, finches, they're a little different from say the titmice or chickadees. A titmouse or a chickadee will actually grab the seed and they'll fly away immediately. And what they're doing is they will go to a branch and they'll actually hammer the seed open. With finches, their beaks are such that when they grab the sunflower seed, they actually kind of saw it right open. They saw the seed open right there and eat it. And because of that, they can eat quite rapidly. And they'll often just sit there for, sometimes 10 minutes eating seeds. And it really exasperates the other birds in the area because they can't get anything to eat. And so what often happens, because they camp out like that, is you'll often see little fights and squabbles between other finches, other types of finches. For example, it's not uncommon to see house finches fight with purple finches and goldfinches fighting with purple finches. But photographing them, it's very simple, very similar to any other finch. Any kind of backyard birding setup will work. Generally, you're probably going to be, with a 400 millimeter lens, you're probably going to be about 10 feet away, 10 to 15 feet at most. You can, of course, the longer the lens, the farther back you can get. But I think you get the picture there. But that's it, the purple finch. The interesting thing, too, I should mention, is we don't get purple finches around my area very often. And this year, and the reason I picked this for the segment today, is I captured my first photograph of a purple finch. I just don't have them here in my particular area of North Carolina. Now they're here, and it was only females. The male purple finch was nowhere to be found. So I found that very interesting. I'm kind of curious to see if they were just passing by or if they're going to stay for the winter. But do check them out. Definitely a bird worth photographing. I want to kind of leave you with this thought, and that is, enjoy the Christmas season. Don't get too wrapped up in photography. We all love it. We obsess over it. But take a breath. Take a breather. Like I said, get yourself a cup of coffee. Go over there to the couch. Fire up your fireplace. Play some Christmas music. Turn the lights down low and just rest. Enjoy this time of reflection and rest, relaxation. Get out and do a little photography. Don't totally forsake it, but spend time with your families, guys. Enjoy them while they're here. And you don't know what tomorrow holds. You may not have your family tomorrow. You can't say that for sure. And so I really want to leave you with that. Enjoy Christmas to the fullest. Enjoy giving gifts. And just have a Merry, Merry Christmas. Bye-bye. Music for this episode was provided by Dr. Turtle.